Shandra tried to concentrate on throwing a new vase, but all morning she couldn't get Carl out of her mind. She'd spent years building up her self-esteem and working on her art to prove to herself she did matter and could live her life successfully. "I'm giving him too much power," Shandra said, tearing down the clay she'd started to build on the wheel. "Who?" She jumped and stared at her employee, Lil. The woman had come with the property like a stray cat. But she'd proved her worth with the animals, keeping the studio and house clean and watching over things when Shandra was away. Lil was eccentric, wearing only purple clothes that were usually several sizes too large, and walking around with Louis, a large orange cat, draped around her neck. "Why do you always sneak up on me like that?" Shandra asked. "I don't sneak. I open the door and walk through just like anyone else." Using a walking stick, Lil walked over to the bench that housed the glazes. It had taken Shandra and Dr. Porter an hour to convince the older woman she needed to use a walking stick after her cast was removed. She'd agreed to use it for a month. Shandra knew as soon as it hit 30 days and her cast was removed, Lil would be tossing the walking stick to a corner of the barn. Lil picked up a jar coated with dried-on glaze. "You had a glaze order come in. Thought I'd clean up some of the older jars." Shandra nodded. The woman knew what to do and could keep things running smooth without needing direction. "That's a good idea." She worked the clay into a ball on the wheel and started forming the sides again. "Radio said they found a body on the slopes," Lil said. "Ryan left a note this morning. He caught the case." She dipped her hand into the warm water in a bucket by the wheel and slid her fingers up, building the clay into a thin layer. "Some professor from New Mexico." The clay crumpled as she took in the information. "Professor? New Mexico?" It couldn't be. What were the odds Carl Landers had come to her mountain and got himself killed? "Did they say a name?" She turned the wheel off and spun on her chair facing Lil's back. "Don't remember. Said he was here on a vacation." Lil tossed an empty plastic jar into a bucket of water. "Heck of a way to end a vacation." Shandra wiped her hands on the rag hanging out of her pocket. "I'm going to make a phone call." She grabbed her coat hanging on a hook by the door. Sheba was beside her as soon as her hand touched the doorknob. "How do I ask Ryan who the dead man is without letting on I know him?" She entered the kitchen and started a kettle of water heating. A cup of tea would fortify her before she called anyone. Ryan stood at the registration desk of the Huckleberry Lodge. He flashed his badge. "Did Carl Landers check in with anyone?" "Yes, a young lady." The woman at the reception desk studied him. "Is something wrong?" "Do you happen to know if that young woman is still in their room?" He hated telling people they'd lost a loved one. Working for the Chicago PD, he'd offered to do paperwork to keep from facing the families of the deceased. He'd been assigned to that detail while waiting for his discharge papers from the Army. He'd vowed then to never have to tell another person they'd lost someone they loved. "I haven't seen her exit the elevators this morning," the woman said. "Is there a problem?" "What room was Carl Landers in?" "Was? Oh dear, is he? I mean, did—" "What room, please?" The last thing he needed were tears and theatrics from the registration clerk. "Room 225. "Thank you." He walked over to the elevators and pushed the up button. The doors whooshed open. He stepped in, thankful he had the elevator to himself. The doors closed, and the small car zipped upward. On the second floor, Ryan noted the direction of room 225 and stopped in front of the door. He knocked. "Just a minute," a high, nasally voice announced. The door opened, revealing a tall, blonde woman in her late 20s. Only a thin silk robe covered her curvy body. "My, I don't remember ordering a cowboy, but I'll take you."